Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First thing is any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none. We have a couple of things on the agenda this morning, presentations. Is the Victim Services here? They're not here yet.
Victim Services is not here presently. Perhaps we can do Crime Stoppers first.
I would like to call the Crime Stoppers forward to make a presentation. Make sure the mic is on there, Carol.
Good morning, and thanks very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. And my name is Neil Lundman. I'm the chairperson of Crime Stoppers Haldeman Norfolk, and Amy Bernardo is also board member coordinator for our program. We represent the volunteer board of directors of Crime Stoppers, and as our name suggests, we operate in the counties of Haldeman and Norfolk, providing our communities the ability to report criminal activity anonymously through Crime Stoppers to law enforcement. So our purpose for being here today is kind of twofold. It was our understanding that we're a number of new board members, so we thought it would be an opportunity to explain who we are and what we do, and as a nonprofit, we'll be seeking some, or requesting some funding for some special initiatives we've got coming up as well. So what is Crime Stoppers? It's a nonprofit charitable organization that combines the best efforts of the community, the media, and law enforcement in the fight against crime. Crime Stoppers Haldeman Norfolk has been operating since 1988. We're in our 31st year, and we're pretty proud of our record in assisting law enforcement in the seizure of property and drugs and charges laid. I'm sorry, I'll let Amy speak here for a minute about
Do you know someone who has been a victim of crime, or you yourself have been a victim of crime? Have you had your home been broken into and your belongings stolen? Do you know someone who has been a victim of assault? Crime Stoppers of Haldeman and Norfolk takes tips on these and all crimes of these every day. Crime Stoppers helps police to solve the cases and bring justice to victims. For whatever reason, someone may not want to have direct contact with police. Crime Stoppers provides them with a voice in which to provide information on crime anonymously, and that is 100% anonymously, to law enforcement.
So how it all began was in 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it started with the murder of a 19-year-old Michael Carmen, who was working in a gas station and was shot and killed over $43 and 4 cartons of cigarettes. At that time, the detective assigned, Greg McAleese, who was Canadian-born actually, was assigned to the case and worked it for a number of months and was getting no leads, and he came up with the idea of cooperating with a local TV station to reenact the crime, offer a $1,000 reward, and guarantee the anonymity of anyone providing information, and it was solved within 24 hours. They arrested 2 individuals, and they were subsequently convicted of that murder, and from there it expanded across the U.S. and into Canada, and as I said, we started in 1988. We've been very successful since then, and now it's a worldwide program, still all volunteer driven, right from grassroots programs right to the president of Crime Stoppers International. So as a nonprofit registered charity, Crime Stoppers' sole source of funding is through private donation and fundraising efforts of our volunteer board of directors. Crime Stoppers receives no government funding, and coming up we have a number of significant initiatives to undertake that Amy will expand on.
So I'm just going to back up and kind of explain how it works if you're unfamiliar with it. So tipsters is what we call them. People anonymously will either call in or submit information via the web. Again, all 100% anonymous. That information is taken from the call takers and/or, the coordinators. And it's vetted to basically protect the tipster. You have to do everything to protect that tipster. We can't put any information forward that could possibly identify who that is. So the information, in keeping kind of the meat and potatoes and everything in there, that information is then forwarded on to law enforcement, and that's not just police. We have many partners. We deal with the MNRF, Ministry of Finance, OSPCA. There's a number of different partners we have. So that information is forwarded on to the police, because we are not the police. We just forward the information on. Investigators will do their investigations and report back as to whether that information was helpful or not, whether a charge or an arrest, etc. And then that is relayed back to caller tipster. However, we have no way to communicate with them, so we rely on them to contact us. And then that information, the coordinator takes that information to the board. The board meets once a month, and they approve the rewards that are put forward. So once that is all communicated, again, the tipster is required to contact Crime Stoppers, and then a location is set up for them to pick up the reward. So in saying that, we do pay out quite a bit, and something we've got on the go starting March the 1st. Our community, like every community, is experiencing the opioid crisis, in particular fentanyl and its derivatives. Crime Stoppers of Haldeman Norfolk is offering a $1,000 reward, I'm going to kind of say a bounty, from March the 1st to May the 1st, for anonymous information that leads to the arrest of fentanyl traffickers, as well as for information that leads to the seizure of a significant amount of that drug. This significant financial commitment undertaken by our program demonstrates our commitment to help make our communities a safer place. By offering this special reward, it is our hope to help prevent further death or sickness by those taking the drugs, by getting opioids and those trafficking it, who have no regard for human life, off the streets. This initiative has also has the hope of helping keep our first responders and police safe when they come in contact with this substance and their interactions with individuals involved in the use and selling of these opioids.
That's our major initiative coming up. It's a significant reward. Crime Stoppers offers rewards of between $50 and $2,000 for tip information, depending upon the severity of the crime and the risk to the tip taker. So a $1,000 reward to us is a significant amount, but it just demonstrates how we feel about this drug and those that will deal in it. So a couple of other projects we have on the go that are significant financially from our viewpoint is replacing all of our road signs that you may see throughout the county. The new sign is a lot more eye-catching, and it's got our tip number prominently displayed to make it easier for people to, first of all, see our involvement in the community, but also have that number keep coming at them for anyone that does have information. In addition, we'll be purchasing a number of other promotional material specific to other initiatives that Crime Stoppers across the world have on the go, including human trafficking, sex trafficking of individuals, and illicit goods, the counterfeiting of illicit goods, which also deals with child slave labor in the most part.
So unfortunately, we are unable to share specific cases in which Crime Stoppers has assisted the police in making an arrest, as revealing that a particular crime was solved by Crime Stoppers obviously could jeopardize the tipster's identity and thereby jeopardize his or her safety. We're the only registered charity with the sole purpose of providing information to law enforcement in hopes of solving a crime. We are, however, very proud of our annual statistics that show in 2018, just a few stats here, so 110 charges laid, over $6,700 in drug seizures, $4,300 in rewards authorized. So since inception, 1988, and this is just for stats on Haldeman and Norfolk, doesn't include any larger areas. So we had over 6,000 charges, almost $6 million in property recovered, over $42 million in drugs seized, and over about 329,000 rewards authorized by the board. And that's just for Haldeman and Norfolk.
So we're pretty proud of those statistics that we're able to, that all of that is just as a result of anonymous tip information that we've received. So that's our presentation, and I'd like to thank you again for the time and the opportunity to speak with you today. We do have some pamphlets, and we'll just leave them here for anyone that has some information for you. Thank you again.
Do we have any questions from the board? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Neil, do you ever have people that have a tip that want to bargain how much they're going to get from Crime Stoppers to give you that tip?
I would say not, but Amy may be better qualified to answer that one.
Sure. So how the amount is determined is it's almost like a point system. So depending on the nature of the crime, how big of a part was that information in the investigation. So all those factors are kind of plugged into a system, and it determines the dollar value. The board has the ability to up or decrease that amount as they see fit, but generally speaking, that's the reward amount. That's the reward amount. It's really not negotiable. I mean, that's what's presented, and that's what's there.
And how many times does your board meet in a year?
Sure.
So just to touch on your initial question there, Michael, I'd like to say too that a number of people do call in with information and they expressly say they're not interested in the tip reward. They just want to provide information through to law enforcement. So we do have those community-minded individuals that they're not interested in the reward. As for our meetings, we meet once a month, every month. And we're always looking for volunteer board members as well, for that matter.
Thank you.
Carol?
Just wanted to say thank you so much for the work that you do. And who could somebody contact should they want to volunteer?
Thank you for that question. They can contact us through our website, www.helpsolvecrime.com, or our administration number is 519-426-3434, extension 7452. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Inspector, this is to the inspector. Obviously, you've worked with Crime Stoppers. Could you tell us how that works and how successful it is?
Crime Stoppers is an invaluable tool for us in helping solve crime. Many tips come through Crime Stoppers that assist in the investigation. As Neil indicated, they are a volunteer board and they're self-funded. So any donations that they get go to a very worthy cause. They're invaluable, not only to us here in Haldeman, Norfolk, but across the province, really. Because if a tip comes in here regarding a crime in any other jurisdiction, that's put onto that jurisdiction. So they're not only helping solve crime here, it's all over.
Thank you. No, I think Crime Stoppers we need the public more than ever in today's crime solving, and I think it's the type of thing that we would support. Are you looking for any, you're asking for a donation towards your Crime Stoppers? Do you have a specific or amount?
Absolutely. Well, nothing specific. Just this year, we do have these significant financial commitments of the $1,000 reward for against the fentanyl traffickers. The signage is a significant cost to us. They're about $550 a piece. We've self-funded a couple already in the county, but we have them entering just about every community coming into the municipality. So that's a significant financial commitment. I'd guesstimate we have about 10 of these signs throughout the county existing that we're replacing, and then we do want to put some in new locations as well.
And my next question to Maureen, have we supported the Crime Stoppers in the past?
We have by donating funds towards your golf tournament And
Right.
anything else other than that, I don't have recollection. I'd have to look back in files.
That is correct. And thank you for that.
To the members of the board, you would like to offer any suggestions, Mike?
Well, I'd like to ask Maureen, what's our budget for things like this, donations to community?
We have proceeds from crime fund, so that's where the anything like this, like for example, the victim services was recently getting some funds from us today, and so I would need a motion from the board to determine if that's what you would like to do to spend funds, and it would come from that account.
How many dollars are in there?
Approximately 9,000.
9,000? So back to Neil and Amy, what kind of a dollar contribution do you think you need from us to make this fentanyl capture program successful?
You don't want me to say 9,000, right?
No.
No. Well, it's difficult to judge. I mean, if we get, say, 5 tips that result in the arrest of fentanyl traffickers, we're going to pay $5,000, and we're glad to do that. So I guess all I can say is, like, any financial assistance we get from this board or any source is appreciated.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is a real important issue for our communities in Norfolk County. It's been discussed many, many times, the fentanyl issue. And I would be prepared to make a motion to put at least $1,000 towards this cause.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Carol seconds the motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
If I may read that motion back, please?
Sure.
That the police services board donate $1,000 towards the Crime Stoppers, and I'm calling it fentanyl program. Is there a specific name to your program that I could state in the motion?
We would speak to Crime Stoppers of Holloman and Norfolk, and we would designate those funds for that purpose in a segregated fund of our own. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so just to donating $1,000 towards Crime Stoppers Holloman, Norfolk, period?
Sure.
Okay.
And I do have another question that you're Holloman, Norfolk, so will you be going to Holloman County Council as well? Or have you been there?
No, it's our intention to go there as well. Okay. We understand they also have new board members as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, I like the idea of the change in the motion. It just gives you a little more leeway to distribute the funds. And again, I'll call for a vote on the motion. Would you like to hear the motion again? So it's $1,000 towards Crime Stoppers for the
Holloman, Norfolk Crime
Holloman,
Stoppers.
Norfolk Crime Stoppers. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And Victim Services isn't here, so we'll do that another day. Number 5, approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to the previous minutes of the last meeting?
I'm sorry.
Having, could I have a motion? Carol, seconded by Mike. Business arising from the minutes. Simcoe Downtown Concerns Report. Inspector Varga.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to the deputation by Mr. Harris, I'd once again like to start off by thanking Mr. Harris for coming forward with his deputation at the January 30th meeting. Takeaways from his deputation: the landscape in Norfolk is changing, and specifically in our downtowns, and the downtown Simcoe in particular. With renewed investment underway, Mr. Harris fears that the perception of downtown Simcoe is one of being unsafe, even though facts may indicate otherwise. If we look at the trend in crime statistics for the county overall, we can see that crime is on a downward trend overall, with the exception of social disorder calls, such as Mental Health Act and domestic violence calls for service. If we look at the trend in crime statistics for downtown Simcoe, an area defined roughly by Queen Street, Stanley Street, Pond Street, and Union Street, we will observe the same overall downward trend in crime statistics, again, with the exception of Mental Health Act and domestic violence calls for service. Overall, we see that social disorder calls for service have increased. Calls for service, which we all, knowing, having previously discussed them, require a true holistic approach involving many community agencies to properly address them. Issues facing the county are transitioning from traditional crime issues to social disorder issues. We as police are requested to attend more calls for service that involve social disorder causes rather than law enforcement issues. Although a law may have been broken, the root cause for the incident is a social issue: mental health, addiction, drugs, disturbances, youth complaints, etc. In cases such as these, if we stop at law enforcement, the cycle will continue. We will continue to return to the same call for service until it escalates into a police action. This leads to the crux of Mr. Harris's deputation. In order to change the perception of downtown Simcoe and shape its future, we need to embrace the community mobilization and engagement model. The police alone cannot alter the perception of downtown Simcoe. As Mr. Harris stated, the OPP are professionals and have capabilities and resources to help us address the needs that we have. The path forward is one that is forged in deep trust and a working relationship with all stakeholders. The community has to have a shared responsibility and accountability for what is happening. This is when community leaders from community support services, Norfolk County, businesses, boards of trade, chambers of commerce, property owners, landlords, family members, and neighbors need to step forward with innovative ideas and sweat equity to ensure a safe and sustainable future for all. The OPP has and will continue to be an engaged partner through our community policing committees, our mobile crisis rapid response team, our situation table, our harm reduction committee participation, our collision reduction committee participation, and Project Lifesaver. We have a dedicated community mobilization officer, a dedicated street crimes unit, a dedicated regional operational analyst. We have a very active auxiliary unit, which in 2018 provided over 4,500 volunteer hours towards programs such as Lock It and Lose It and Project Safeguard. We have extensive media campaigns, an annual Citizens Academy, and many more initiatives. Two specific requests were made by Mr. Harris: increase in foot patrols in downtown for a limited duration of time at our discretion, and establish an extended service office downtown. Foot patrol hours are reported monthly and accessible to the public. Foot patrol is completed in communities that we feel will have the greatest impact on public safety. Having said this, I will advise that a review analysis is underway to ensure that the foot patrol we are conducting in downtown Simcoe is being conducted at the appropriate times to maximize its effectiveness. As for the establishment of an extended service office on Norfolk Street, I can only say at this time that we're communicating with a community partner in hopes of establishing an extended service office downtown, and that it will come to fruition.
Thank you, Inspector. I'm sure Mr. Harris will hopefully, he's listening today and realize how just active you are in the town of Simcoe.
Yeah, I've had some conversation with Mr. Harris after our last police service board meeting, so I'm sure I'll have further conversation with him.
Moving on to, oh yeah, sorry.
I will provide it to Maureen, which will go in the minutes, which I believe are published on the website and available.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
And just another question, Mr. Chairman. How many, with what's happening downtown Simcoe, how many repeat offenders are there in that particular area? Do we know? That are continually going to the court and, you know, spending their time or getting off, and then they're back at it again?
Those are operational issues that I won't discuss at this time.
Okay, thank you. That's fair.
To you, since Kim is not here, I'm going to kind of, again, to the inspector, you've read the email. Would you kindly give us an overview?
Excuse me, can we just back up about, was there any questions on community policing minutes? There were some minutes there, I didn't know.
Is there any questions on community policing minutes? Having said none? Not to the end. I'm moving a little quickly, get us home ahead of the storm. Back to you again and the inspector on the email, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The email in regards from a citizen residing in Port Dover who has concerns about for pedestrians in Port Dover, particularly St. George Street, the school zone area, Clifford Street, as well as Main Street. So the Clifford Street, for those that are aware, in Port Dover is about 1 block long, running from Main Street over to St. George Street. She seems to be concerned about pedestrians on that street. That street has no sidewalks. I don't believe that speeding is an issue on that street. Pedestrian safety, again, there's no sidewalks. Perhaps that's something that should be directed by council to our roads division to look into that as a measure for that. She also has a concern about St. George Street and speeding. We did conduct a speed spy study last year in regards to St. George Street as a result of a complaint, and at that time, and I have the results here in front of me, for northbound traffic, the 50th percentile speed was only 35 kilometers an hour, and the average speed was 33 kilometers an hour in the 50 zone. Southbound traffic, the 50th percentile was 41 kilometers an hour, the average speed was 39 kilometers an hour. What it was noted in the speed spy study, though, is that there's a high number of vehicles traveling on that roadway. And again, it is a school zone, so there is going to be very high, heavy traffic area during peak times. Again, I think if we look at Port Dover as a whole, a lot of the issues that we have, complaints, such as Prospect Street and a few others, it's not a speeding issue, it's a volume issue. The town has grown tremendously, and the infrastructure, the roads haven't. They're the same as they were years ago, and it's volume. It's not speeding. As well, one thing that perhaps Councillor Columbus could take back to the Roads Division is I noticed the T intersection at Clifford Street at St. George. It's a T intersection, but it's only a two-way stop. So when they're traveling northbound on St. George, traffic can literally turn the corner, turn right onto Clifford Street without stopping, which, and I noticed that our resident lives very close to the corner there. That could be a perception that vehicles are speeding. So perhaps that could be looked at by Roads Division as well. In regards to Main Street, we also did a speed spy study there. And the average speed was only 57 kilometers an hour for eastbound traffic in the 50 kilometer an hour zone, and westbound was 54 kilometers an hour. So again, it didn't indicate that there was a speeding problem. However, there was during the time period that which was 2 days, there was over almost 4,000 vehicles, both directions. So again, a volume issue. Perhaps it's time that other traffic calming measures are looked at by the county in regards to how to deal with the volume issue of traffic. The complainant notes that it's a shortcut for people going to the school. Again, there's only so many ways to get to the school, so I can't alter that.
Thank you, Inspector.
Mr. Chair, I just have
Oh,
one
sorry,
question
Kate.
for the inspector. What was the date of that focus patrol in that area?
The speed spy study was June 11th and 13th, 2018. And good thing you mentioned focus patrol, because we did, last year, we did do a focus patrol just to see what was going on, and on St. George regarding the stop signs there. We did issue 7 charges in total.
Thank you, Inspector. I would think that I'll make some notes and forward them to Kim, since Kim received the email, and we'll let Kim, the information you gave, we will forward to Kim, and Kim can forward again to the citizen. Is everybody comfortable with that? I think we need a motion to, where are we here now? Yeah. We need a motion to accept the correspondence. Carol, second by Mike. All in favor? Carried. On to the inspector with our monthly report.
Mr. Chair, if I could just, perhaps before we move on to new business, just a question regarding old business. Has the board heard anything back from council regarding our speed watch proposal? Is there any update on that could be provided? Correct, the proposal that the board put forward to council. Thank you. I just had some inquiries from members of the public.
Thank you, Mike. On to the monthly report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting on page 13, the overtime allotment 2019 per the contract, $387,628. Dollars spent to date, $10,279.07, which is approximately 2.65% of the budget, which, as you can see, is down from where we were last year in 2018. Auxiliary policing hours for the month of January was 276. Crime Stoppers report, a summary of activities for January 2019. There have been 53 anonymous tips received this year. I won't go through the statistics, as Neil and Amy did that in their presentation. Student Crime Stoppers, student bursary applications have been provided to all secondary schools in Haldeman and Norfolk, and they continue to support the Crime Stoppers programs within both counties, or the student Crime Stoppers programs. Participation, presentation meetings, they participated, presented to, or met with Delhi Community Policing, Cortland Crescent Care, Pace Setters at Emmanuel Bible Church, and the Port Dover Maple Leaf. January was Crime Stoppers Month worldwide this year, and the theme was Say It Here, to promote Crime Stoppers and educate the public. Crime Stoppers, Haldeman Norfolk, did a number of media features to promote this event. We had a flag raising ceremony in downtown Simcoe here, as well as they were over in Haldeman with a flag raising. They continue to conduct media relations throughout the month. Fundraising, there's the fundraiser at the Boston Pizza on January 17th. It was well attended by a lot of people. I was there. It was quite good. They're also working on other options to raise funds, and their annual dinner auction is in May, golf tournament in August. They continue to support national initiatives throughout the month, focusing on human trafficking, counterfeit goods, and contraband tobacco. They're the host of this next Southwest Zone meeting in April, and they continue to seek new board members. And you heard that their special project is fentanyl drug traffickers. Locally dedicated hours of overtime for January were 328.88 for municipal and 202.13 for provincial overtime. Moving to page 18, the statistics. All violent crime, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 22 and 34 events. During the reported month, 40 actual events were investigated. On to assaults, page 19. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 14 and 22 events. During the reported month, 25 actual events were investigated. Assaults in Norfolk County reported above the projected range for January. In reviewing the assaults for January, they included domestic-related, family-related, school-related assaults. Domestic disturbances, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 43 events. During the reported month, 32 actual events were investigated. Page 21, all property crime. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 96 and 120 events. During the reported month, 114 actual events were investigated. Break and enters. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 22 events. During the reported month, 18 actual events were investigated. Break and enters fell within the projected range for January. Page 23, frauds. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 9 and 19 events. During the reported month, 17 actual events were investigated. Mischiefs. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 21 events. During the reported month, 19 actual events were investigated. Page 25, theft from motor vehicle. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 12 events. During the month, 8 actual events were investigated. Theft of motor vehicle, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 5 and 9 events. During the reported month, 16 actual events were investigated. Theft of vehicle events reported above the projected range for January. Simcoe and Port Dover saw the bulk of those thefts. Again, we continue with the Lock It, Lose It program. Some of the motor vehicles, theft of motor vehicles are in relation to our ATM thefts, which there is a major project investigation underway to combat them. So hopefully we'll see that drop in the future. Theft under 5,000, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk OPP could expect 40 events. During the reported month, 38 actual events were investigated. Illicit drugs, page 28. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 8 events. During the reported month, 2 actual events were investigated. During the reported month, the Community Street Crimes Unit executed 2 warrants. A total of 9 persons were charged with a total of 27 charges, 1 Controlled Drug Substance Act charge, and 26 criminal code charges. There was 1 drug seizure valued at $86 and 12 property seizures, household articles, tools, electronics. There were no cash seizures or vehicles seized during this time frame. 911 calls, we'll go to page 30. 911 calls, hang-up calls. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect between 103 and 117 events. During the reported month, 164 events were investigated. We continue with the media campaign about the proper use of 911, the proper use of your cell phone, ensuring that it's locked when not in use, et cetera, but the message doesn't seem to be getting through. Alarms on page 31. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 60 and 67 events. During the reported month, 42 actual events were investigated. Mental Health Act on page 33. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that the Norfolk OPP could expect 43 events. During the reported month, 38 actual events were investigated. During the month of January, members were involved in the 38 mental health related occurrences, dedicating 286 and a half hours to their investigations. The average year-to-date time spent per Mental Health Act call for service is 6.75 hours. If we move back to page 29 for traffic related information. Collisions, all collision types for January reported within the projected range at 80. All collision types did see a decrease of 31 from January last year. A year-to-date decrease of 27.9% was observed from the same time frame last year. Property damage collisions for January reported within the projected range at 68. Property damage collisions did see a decrease of 18 from January of last year. Non-fatal injury collisions for January reported within the projected range at 12. All non-fatal injury collisions did see a decrease of 3 from January last year. Non-fatal injury collisions totaled 13 for December. In reviewing the collisions, they ranked as follows: speed too fast for conditions, 3, failed to yield right of way, 3, inattentive driving, 3, lost control, 1, mechanical issue, 1, and pedestrian, 1. Happy to report that we had no fatal collisions in the month of January. Impaired driving, which is on page 32. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 6 events. During the reported month, 5 actual events were investigated. Page 34, foot patrol hours. In the month of January, a total of 396 foot patrol hours were conducted throughout the county. 167 3/4 of those were conducted in the town of Simcoe. We had no bike patrol hours for January, and we conducted 30 school visits during the month of January with no violent events occurring. Driving charges, don't have them right now. We're always slightly behind, a couple months, so next month I'll have January's. But we can look down at driver license suspensions. We had 1 roadside screening for January, 4 roadside suspensions, ADLS, 1 3-day suspension, and we conducted 30 ride initiatives and 15 seatbelt initiatives during the month. Focus patrols, we have a cottage watch focus patrol on from now till May 1st, and that's in regards to mischiefs and break-and-enters at our seasonal cottages, primarily in Turkey Point and Long Point. We have a closed focus patrol in regards to ATM thefts that were occurring throughout southern Ontario. 26 officers dedicated 134 hours to patrolling and monitoring ATM locations throughout the county. We had 3 stolen ATMs recovered in the northeast area of the county. They weren't stolen from our county, they were just dumped in our county. And as I said, there is a major project underway in southern Ontario in regards to ATM thefts. Break and enter focus patrol in regards to an address on Lyndale Road. It was in response to repeated break and enters into a home under construction. 7 officers dedicated 5.25 hours to the focus patrol. There was 4 reported occurrences. However, once the focus patrol started, the occurrences ceased. We had a traffic focus patrol for concession 6 in Woodhouse regarding speeding that ran for 3 weeks. During that time, 6 officers dedicated 8 hours to monitoring speed along concession 6 in Woodhouse. No violations were observed, and we had no speed spy studies during the month as the weather was not conducive to those. That is the report, if there's questions.
Mike?
Yeah, this ATM theft seems to be a real issue, and I noticed they're even happening in daylight. Can they not put some kind of a chip in the ATM machine so that satellite can pick it up and you can follow it, actually like they have in vehicles?
Through the chair, the ATMs, most of them are privately owned, and that would be up to the owners of the ATM if they wanted to spend that money. Our advice has always been, and we've actually visited every ATM owner or business that has an ATM within the county, in that A, if they're really not making any money from it, they should get rid of it, because the damage that is being caused by these individuals stealing the ATM to the building and the business far outweighs often the $40 or $50 they make per month off the ATM. If they must have an ATM, then we suggest that they place it in such a way that it is not quite visible from the windows on the outside, and that in the evening they actually take the money out of it, leave the door open so that people can see there's nothing in it, it's not worthwhile stealing.
Thank you for that information. It sounds like the right thing to do.
Any questions for the inspector? I have a couple. Car thefts are always on the rise, Inspector. I see that Brant, Haldeman, Brantford. I forget the actual name, but they had a special operations out of Brantford. I think we supplied some time and manpower. Is that still unit still in force?
I believe the unit is still active, however, the OPP is not an active partner in that unit at this time. However, our street team does liaison with them quite regularly in regards to vehicle theft. So intelligence information is shared to help solve investigations.
Thank you. And again, on 911, just to repeat, the public doesn't get it. They're calling you for things that tying up officers and street time for our officers. Again, what do we do? We've tried press. We've tried. Do you have any? Is there anything more we can do?
I wish I had the magic solution, but I don't. All again, as I can say, is we continue to message it out there in the media for the appropriate use of 911, and people have to realize that all these false calls, all these hang-ups, all these, I don't want to use the word prank, but inappropriate use of 911 ties up valuable resources for real emergencies.
Yes, and it's gone a long way past when the kids at the arena used to go up to the payphone, and it's far exceeded that now.
I'm not sure, can you even find a payphone nowadays?
No, that's what I mean. Moving on to other business. There's a couple of things. Mike?
Chair, we just need to make a motion to accept.
Oh, yes. Could I have a motion? Carol, seconded Mike. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to other business, we got two things. Did you get, Councillor Mike, you were going to look up?
I thank you for that, Mr. Clemens.
As far as the board, I cannot speak for Kim, but her enthusiasm for this program was duly noted. Uh, Maybe we can talk about it a little bit, whether we want to refer it now, whether we speak for Kim or we have another member coming on board, or wait to the next meeting. I'm sure that we will send it, a feeling that we'll send that back to council very, very positive to get this thing done. And what's the feeling of the board members?
Well, at the end of the budget session, we had it down to 2.1. Then Councillor decided to put a motion on the floor to put $1 million into a contingency council initiative reserve. And so perhaps the dollars can come out of that. And so I can proceed with putting a notice of motion back on the floor. It's going to take a few weeks because there's a 2-week break. And I'll get the clerk's department working on that.
Do you need anything formal from us? Motion that we support?
I would think that would help, yes.
I'll call for a motion. This is a quorum.
Move that we proceed with the notice of motion with respect to the OPP request for a trailer with signage and, what do they call those?
Joe, do you want to offer some wording there?
Well, it was, the request went to council from the police service board. I did the deputation, so I believe that probably it should be
Do you want me to use that same use
I
the
think,
same motion that was used in either October or November, whenever you made your presentation?
yeah,
Is that the
just
motion?
because it's
The actual wording is in there?
the motion or the request to council for the purchase actually came from the police service board, not directly from the OPP, for the mobile speed watch trailer and signs.
Okay, so can you word that, Maureen?
Well, I have the old motion, I just
Okay.
have to look for it. Is that what is the wish of the
Yes.
board
and we'll-
for me to use that same
Yes.
motion? I just can't find it right now, sorry. If you give me a minute, I can, but
We
do
can-
you want me to just use that motion?
I would think so. The inspector's got it worded properly, and if that's what was in there, we can, as long as you put that we'll have to go through a notice of motion through the clerk's department.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor from Mike, seconder Carol, all in favor, carried. Under other business, Councillor Mike, could you give us an overview of the Zone 4 meeting?
But I did attend the Zone 4 meeting in Hamilton, and it was well attended. There was 50 persons there between inspectors and other police personnel from the OPP and several municipal representatives. And we had a very good presentation from it was about, you're going to help me here, Inspector. The gentleman who spoke about education, Claus Wagner, Hamilton Police Service, who gave us a very good presentation on drugs, alcohol, and new driving legislation was one of the most important things that I found was worthwhile attending that event. And of course, there's all kinds of other police issues that are discussed at those meetings. Mr. Murphy, you were there too, so.
Yes, and in the Police Service Board section of that meeting, we discussed some changes coming down, and basically, not a lot has changed as our level goes, but, and they're working real hard to fill any vacant spots, but that's been going on for years, so not a lot of changes, but the police council, they're shortening some membership on things like that, but basically, it's just business as usual.
I can add, because of the election last fall, municipal election, there were several new members at the other part of the meeting for the Police Services Board, the first-time attendees.
And you will see that now often. There's about 80 vacancies, I think, 80 to 100 vacancies, but they're, and that's been that way, but they have some new people in the government that are working hard to fill those spots. Okay. Oh, Monty, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Something that I forgot to ask Neil Unwin was that if you're an individual or business and you make a donation to Crime Stoppers, do you get a tax receipt for that? Is it like a registered nonprofit or charity, whatever?
If my memory is correct, they are a registered charity. So you would get if they're a registered charity, then yes, you would get a tax receipt.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Because I asked him if somebody wanted to make a dedicated donation to the fentanyl program, whether they could do that, and he said yes. And so if you just mentioned that there's also a tax receipt in there that could, prompt more money coming forward.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. Now, I did ask James Johnson at the end of the budget session about the speed sign program. And he says that my understanding is that some people on staff or on council are under the impression that the Police Services Board is reviewing some of its activities and may stop doing certain things. And they were waiting for information about that. Did they have right information on that?
I'm not aware of that request at all. I don't think we're reviewing to the inspector.
Nothing's come back to me. That's hence why I asked where we were at with things.
Yes, a not a review of the speed sign program, but I was given to understand that it was a review of other programs that the PSB has been involved in, that the PSB is thinking of getting out of, and that once you guys have an idea of what you're committed to and not committed to, they might have a better idea of how much help from council will be needed to pay for this new electronics. But it was almost like they were waiting for you folks to make a decision about what sort of programming you're going to continue to be involved in before council actually says, okay, well, it sounds like then you could use this much help from Norfolk County. But staff and some people on council are under the impression that you guys are doing a program review of some kind.
No, we're answering a request from the OPP that would, for public safety and to cut down speeding in our community. It's more towards public safety as a request from the OPP. Am I correct on that, Inspector?
Correct. I would think that if perhaps through Councillor Columbus, if a motion was passed for some type of review, that perhaps something could come from the county as to more specific what they are requesting in that review, because nothing's come across my desk yet, and I would assume that it would come to the Police Service Board first, since the motion for the purchase came from the Police Service Board. But
So it just might be as simple as Councillor Columbus going back to Norfolk Council and saying, well, if you think the PSB is doing a major program review and rejigging its budget, et cetera, that's not happening. So it's maybe somebody's operating under the wrong impression about what the PSB is doing with regard to a quote-unquote program review.
Thank you for that information, Monty.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Monty. Anything else to come before the board before I call for a motion to go into closed section? I need a motion. Carol, seconder Mike, all in favor, carried. We move into, sure, if you need. Well, by the time Monty asks his questions, that'll